I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born there.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there. I am a true Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born there.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there.
It's Naval String Connections. I am Bilal Morris, live from my studio here in Los Angeles, along with ARIA LIGHTFOOT, live from out of Florida. And we are the hosts of Naval String Connection, a CREM or XTV production. It's so hard to say XTV because we are so used to CREM. But this is an XTV production. Our producer is Nur Muhammad, the man behind the controls. Give him his credit now. Arlen, always with us, always making sure that things are happening. And we want to invite you, the viewers across the Belizean diaspora. We have your naval string buried at Belize, all I know that are the UK, that are the United States, the Caribbean, Central Latin America, all over the world. If you're tuning in on Facebook and on YouTube, you have reached the right show, Naval String Connections, and we want to invite you more and more all the time to stay tuned and to tune into our show to get information on the Belizean diaspora as well as information on Belize on the ground, views, news, and reviews. And we have a very, very important guest coming up tonight. I will just go to Sister ARIA to introduce this surprise guest for
well,
you.
It's not a surprise. Good night, viewers.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in. Our guest tonight is the Honorable Shyne Barrow. He should be here about 8 o'clock p.m. And during that time, Bilal and I will be talking a little bit about politics because politics is very hot right now, Bilal. It's hot in the United States with a major election coming up next week.
Oh,
and
yes.
it's hot in Belize because the opposition is creating an unprecedented event, never before seen in Belize politics.
Yes.
I mean, at one point, I think that January 6th, that Belize, yeah, like
that.
a bunch of insurgents.
The Belize they won January 6th, no?
They won January 6th, right? Yep. So let's talk a little bit about U.S. elections because you have a very tight race that's going on right now, and it's a lot of Belizeans are impacted by this. For one, we are immigrants, and one party is very anti-immigrant, and they have made it well known. And then the issue with Kamala is that a lot of men don't think that a woman should be running the most powerful military in the world.
You didn't get that from her, eh?
That is what it is. That's why it's very tough for women to become president in the U.S. because that has always been one of the criticisms, that should a woman be in control of the most powerful military in the world? Or do we, I mean, in America, there's a lot of other issues. You have the war that's going on right now with the Palestinians and Israel, and that is really impacting a lot of independent voters. I mean, you can't deny the human rights crisis that's going on right now. And so then you have one side that has openly been racist against different groups, the Haitians, and recently the Puerto Ricans. Some people think it's only about money. Some people are voting, hey, just worry about my money. Some people are voting on social issues, you know. What do you think about the elections, Bilal? Should it be this close? I mean, you have a
you know, this is a serious election in the United States for the presidential elections. Very serious one. I've never seen one like this before. We have the serious challenges by a once president of the United States, Donald Trump, who has made it very, very clear of his anti-immigrant status. And now, from Naval String Connection here, as one of the hosts of the show, I will talk from an immigrant standpoint. When I was told by Karen Bass, the leader, the mayor of Los Angeles, California, that the Belizeans are the largest black immigrant group in Los Angeles, that scared me, because I was, how come I don't know that? And we here as immigrants, we sway a lot of power. Hate us or love us. In the terms of the Trump politics, the anti-immigrant politics that has been swayed, and I understand the position of the Democrat. Speaking with that mayor, and which was a congresswoman at the time, trying to lobby her in favor for Belize on the Anglo-Guatemalan claim. But we Belizeans in Los Angeles, we've came out in full force last presidential elections with the lobbying of the California Democratic politicians like Karen Bass and all of them who come into the Belizean community. Like she says that the Belizeans vote for her in her constituency. So the Belizean diaspora is a very significant voting bloc. Don't we know, being that we are passive or whatever, we are not the leader of the black immigrant agenda. Belizeans have voted Democratic Party down the line in California. The very few Republican Belizeans that I have met still have Belize as their interests. That Belize gets the best position in this whole Central American geography when it comes to foreign policy and so forth, and in the development of the country itself, even with their Republican stance. I've spoken to quite a few who share that position. But this one here, because of the coming to power of President Biden in the last election, where the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, lost that election, and we can say, ARIA, that how can we as immigrants, particularly black immigrants in the United States, how have we fared under the presidency of Donald Trump? Many Belizeans that I have known who have voted Democratic and had lived under the presidency of Donald Trump have complained tremendously about the aggressive nature of ICE, trying to. Lots of Belizeans are here as illegal immigrants, but they feared and they had lived under the shadow, as they have always lived under the shadow of any American president, being that they're not all, but there are some Belizeans who are still illegal immigrants.
I do want to go to the issue of black immigrants, because Trump did something interesting. The Haitians that he attacked are not illegals. They are actually legally in the United States. But what he brought awareness to were black immigrants. Before, a lot of black immigrants were able to assimilate into the African American community.
Absolutely.
There wasn't really a define. So for the most part, a lot of immigrants like Belizeans benefited somewhat from African Americans because they were not assumed to be immigrants, especially when the language, their tongue kind of lightened more into the American tongue. It was harder to differentiate. So ICE and those, they weren't pulled over or profiled as being immigrants. But with Trump's new attack on Haitians, as I was telling someone, there's no way to differentiate. If you are an American, they don't differentiate accents. They don't know you're Haitian, Jamaican, Belizean, Guyanese. They just know that you're an immigrant, And Trump is giving this impression that these black immigrants are eating dogs and eating cats. what he's doing, he's dehumanizing people. Because if I can dehumanize you and I could make you look somewhat like a monster to your neighbors, well, then suddenly I am no longer a human being. And now the rights that you fall under, the Constitution, people are willing to look the other way. So he's been very clever in how he is articulating the immigration issue. The other issue is Puerto Ricans are not immigrants, they're U.S. citizens. And his group, even though they said this is the first time they've ever seen him walk back a racist statement, because the Puerto Rican community are a major community in at least 2 of the swing states, and the Puerto Rican men that were supporting Trump, now they're all walking it back, and now they're tweeting. I think Bad Bunny being very popular. You have Jennifer Lopez. You had I think it was 4 major Puerto Rican stars with a following of 500 million people total have disavowed what was said. And what the media was finding interesting was, you mean after all these people have said all these racist things, it's the comedian joke that offended people. And I try to tell people the reason why it offended them is because when you laugh at a joke, that means you get the joke, right? So if I'm calling your island garbage and I laugh at that joke, that means I understand the joke. It's a very interesting thing. I always talk about coded languages, but it was really offensive. It was a very offensive thing. And that, interestingly, wasn't the only offensive thing that he said. They were making light of serious issues, and I just think that because I think that what Trump appeals to, in my mind, is white grievance. It's this idea that everybody's coming in, taking over. Suddenly, I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm born here, and I'm being taken out of opportunities. But that's not the reality, because you walk into any corporate office, you walk into most we'll call it the Fortune 500 companies, you barely see women, you barely see people of color running those companies. So this idea that he's pushing, that all these immigrants are coming in and taking over, is not fair, because the reality is that immigrant plays a role in a lot of stuff. Good night and welcome, Honorable Shyne Barrow.
Good night.
Greetings, my brother.
Yes, good night, everyone.
How are you?
Greetings.
Fine, thank you.
Good. Thank you for joining us. We were talking a little bit about American politics until you got here. And because Tuesday is decision day, I'm hoping that there are some good election parties. I think he kind of froze there a little bit.
Okay.
I can see you guys when.
Yeah. So, Honorable Shyne, there's a lot going on with the United Democratic Party, almost as exciting politics. Okay, we kind of lost him.
Yeah, he's going to try to come back in.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, here we go. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So there's a lot going on. We're kind of juxtapose the Belize election and the U.S. election. Belize have their own insurgents. January 6th, what was our day? What was the day, Bilal?
The January 6th, huh? Belize have their... Yeah, we were just saying, Brother Shyne, that Belize have its own January 6th, right? Where, in the terms of the I
U.S.
wouldn't want to say the turmoil, but with the challenges and the crisis that is happening in the United Democratic Party with your leadership and how it's been challenged by members of your own party and stuff like that, we are so grateful to have you to come on to discuss with us the inception of this crisis. And forgive me if I call it a political crisis, but that's what it appears to look like from our side where we are looking from. But we want to again thank you, my brother, for coming in and to join us to give our Belizean viewers across the Belizean diaspora some understanding, because they're concerned, they are wondering. You have a lot of supporters in the Belizean diaspora, people who are looking at your political career and are big supporters of you in the Belizean diaspora because you support the Belizean diaspora. Talk to us if you may.
I do want to add first, Bilal, that we also are going to talk a little bit about the Hulu documentary, which I believe is culminates and talks about this. But normally, we would like to talk about the diaspora. We have, of course, want to start there. And one of the questions I have, a lot of people call you the son of the Belizean diaspora because you were raised here in the U.S. How do you believe that all your experiences in the United States, being that you at some point was in Belize as a child, your transition to the U.S., what it was like, and also how does that affect or reflect upon your leadership in Belize?
Well, thanks for having me. Pleasant good night to your viewership. Very much enjoy the work that you guys do on your podcast. Yes, what you mentioned earlier, Bilal, was in fact an insurrection, was in fact reminiscent of January 6th, where a violent mob stormed Capitol Hill and people lost their lives. It is quite tragic and unfortunate, the events that unfolded this Monday and Tuesday with a violent criminal takeover of the United Democratic Party by ousted members who have factioned off and formed their own Alliance for Democracy Party, but continue to engage in fraud and deception rather than take ownership for them breaking away. It is, as I said, disheartening and tragic, but we have demonstrated the UDP leadership proper, the actually duly elected leadership that these people that pretend to be. We demonstrated restraint, we demonstrated poise, and we demonstrated responsible leadership, because had there been any reaction to that violent takeover of the United Democratic Party, that could have resulted in people losing their lives and becoming seriously hurt. So I definitely thank my colleagues, I thank the leadership executive and everyone who called for calm and restraint and called for this to be a defining moment in our leadership, that we would not reduce ourselves to these people, most of them that have been voted out. John Saldiva, designated as significantly corrupt. Edmond Castro, banned from the United States because of corruption. Boots Martinez, allegedly engaged in rampant corruption during his time in public office. Erwin Contreras, all of these people that are solid and have damaged reputations and led to the tremendous loss that we took in 2020. These are all the people that are fighting against me. These are all the people that came there in their violent mob to instigate a confrontation, hoping that I would be the 19-year-old Shyne when I was young and immature and just finding my way. Thank goodness that I have evolved and matured into a leader that is responsible and prudent and puts the Belizean people first and truly reveres democracy. And in democracy, we have different branches of government that deal with these types of disputes, and never let it be an example to those youth on the south side and youth and people everywhere. Never take the law into your own hands. That is why we have a judiciary. Extremely disappointed in the lack of enforcement by the Belize Police Department. I believe the commissioner, on one hand, says that the Alliance for Democracy Party should have gotten a court order in order to eject us from the headquarters, and the way they went about it, he concedes is criminal. But he is not going to get involved. That the law doesn't work like that. This is not about politics. This is about rule of law. This is about our democracy. And if the people that are saying they want to get into cabinet, the people that are saying they want to be your next prime minister and ministers of government cannot adhere to the rule of law, if they had all of the documents that they claim they had, what is the difficulty in going to the magistrate court or whatever court governs to say we need a court order so that these people can vacate the premises? We are the rightful occupants.
So one of the things I do want to ask you regarding that, you know, you're dealing with an organization that's over 50 years old, and in Belize generally, I don't think we like the rule of law. I mean, as much as we use it for brownie points in the politics, Belize have a very underneath, unofficial way of doing things. And do you think that, well, I should ask, why do you think that this reached this level of dispute? Because I see it, I mean, I have not been shy about speaking up against it. I'm big on rule of law, because I think that Belize is now 43 years old and we just can't continue functioning in a dysfunctional way. It's affecting our economy, our poverty rates, it affects a lot of things. It affects how people view us, how we do business. So what's the bridge? Like, how do you cross a bridge? How do you bring people and show them that the rule of law really is important when we haven't been using the rule of law at all for a lot of things in our society generally, not just politically?
Well, I think that was done this week. There are many people that have applauded the composure and poise with which myself and the leadership executive dealt with this matter. There are people that once supported Tracy Pantan and have lost all respect for her. But we got here because of my agenda and my mandate to reform the party and to rid ourselves of these people that were engaged in corruption and want to continue with their corruption. Corruption is the abuse of the rule of law, the violation of the rule of law by public officials. And what you see playing out is no different than why some of these people were designated corrupt. Because in public life, they abused their authority, they manipulated the law by way of their authority, and you see that now. You see that you have a duly elected leadership, you have a duly elected structure of the party, and when they don't get what they want, what they demand, rather than follow processes, whether it is appealing to the ethics committee or appealing to the National Party Council, and try to see if you can get your grievances addressed. And finally, if that doesn't work, you have administrative law, you have judicial review, you have the judiciary, just as we are now before the court to resolve the matter. These former ministers should know better, but that is why they were voted out, because they've never done better. This is how they deal with things, and this is what the Belizean people have rejected. And so you have a group of people that don't care about the Constitution, don't care about the rule of law. All they care about is their selfish agenda, is what is going to benefit their ego, what is going to benefit their vanity, what is going to benefit their ambition. And that is how we got here. We did not get here. I believe dictatorship was on full display over the last couple of weeks, where a small group of people believe that they can take matters into their own hands. I just point you to today. I was in the House of Representatives at the committee meeting, and so the chairman of the Economic and Finance House Committee was absent. So the standing orders say that we would elect a pro tem chair. That's what the standing orders say. The United Democratic Party Constitution provides no provision for delegates to convene their own national convention. It does not exist. So you cannot take matters into your own hands. You cannot evoke provisions of the Constitution that do not exist. But this is typical John Saldiva. This is typical Boots Martinez, typical Erwin Contreras, and all of those that have been accused and associated with the most heinous crimes and corruptions that we know. And now we know that while Tracy Pantan may have been putting on this face of pristine prudence, she's no different than them. And maybe that's why they all want her to lead, because she was a part of whatever they were doing, the accusations of corruption back then. But we have to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish as a nation. Is it better to unite with the corrupt, with those that will just get back into office to rob and steal from the Belizean people and not push our country forward? Or is it better to divide and part ways? Abraham and Lot had to go their separate ways. And I believe in life, you have to stand for your principles, and where you have the old guard that wants to continue with the status quo, they want to continue with the things that have stagnated Belize for the last 43 years. As leader, that is not what I signed up for. I signed up so that we could reform. I signed up to be leader so that we can be agents of change and overhaul the system, but they don't want that. And so that is how we got here.
China, let me say that the history of the United Democratic Party, being that we invoke Belize's political history here, where the leadership of the NIP, led by Philip Golson, was kind of way you are facing challenges that is not new. That many changes in the history, if we study the history of the United Democratic Party, the whole history of Philip Golson, NIP, moving into the United Democratic Party with this whole Dean Lindo faction coming in and just displacing that cadre of Belizean politicians in the United Democratic Party. And then we had the formation of the first United Democratic Party government in 1984, with being elected by the coming in of the Manuel Esquivel administration, where there were lots of ministers in that administration that was very corrupted at the same time. The challenges that I see that you're facing is not new. And you are just a new face, because I've seen the history of the United Democratic Party changing from the NIP, the leadership of Philip Golson, and then when the Philip Golson, when the coming in of the Lindo faction, the formation, right? We saw the trend of corruption by many politicians, we don't have to call their name, coming right into your father's time as leader, as Prime Minister of the United Democratic Party. But I'm just trying to look at a pattern here, that there's a pattern in the United Democratic Party with this kind of crisis.
But not just the United Democratic Party.
Of course.
Both parties.
Very much so. Very much so.
What I'm saying is, I undertook, someone asked me, said, you are a multimillionaire, you have assets in entertainment, in real estate, everything. You have movies coming out about your life, you have a memoir, you have so much going for you. Why put yourself through this? And I thought this is not for me. I have been fortunate and I've been extremely blessed in life, and I've been able to accomplish things for myself. This undertaking is for the Belizean people. This undertaking is for my daughter, is for the children in Mesopotamia and all across from Cayo North, Cayo Central, Cayo West to Corozal North, Corozal Southeast, Anguilla, Stanquick, Toledo. This is what I believe I owe to Belize. I was extremely fortunate to have a life with opportunities, hardships, tragedies, triumphs, and to me this is the ultimate way of giving back to my home, to my nation. And why would I allow the people that have ruined this country for 43 years to continue in that path?
Right.
This is my time to stand up and to fight. And I invite all like-minded Belizeans at home and abroad to join me, because we have heard much propaganda about Shyne Barrow, but you are getting to see who Shyne Barrow is. If I was the person that they said I was, someone would have gotten hurt on Monday or Tuesday. But they have proven themselves to be the criminals, the thugs, the corrupt actors, as the Americans have designated them. And this is what we must stand up against, so it will never change.
So I have a question regarding, just following up on Bilal. You're right, both parties have seen cases where this whole idea of change, they're resistant to change. You saw, I always remember Jorge Spat with his very passionate speech in the House about corruption, and then we never saw him in politics again. And you have Marcel Cardona, you have a whole cadre of Belizeans who actually tried, but you're fighting, I think. The thing is with corruption, I think, is that a lot of people survive off corruption, or they think they do. For example, a lot of people need things to be bought for them, paid for them, and so they don't have the pleasure of stepping back and looking at things in a complete, like how this one thing affects something later on. A lot of people are on everyday survival. Do you think you're just being idealistic? Are you living in utopia? Because even the U.S. that's here with their anti-corruption agenda seems difficult to break into our culture because it's so small and hands-on when it comes to corruption. Do you think you're just being a little bit too idealistic with what's happening in Belize?
I completely reject that. Your life is to be lived on your ideals. If you don't have ideals, then what do you live for? Then you become just like the people that have ruined our nation and stagnated our nation. So we can't keep complaining about something. We can't keep yearning for a difference. But then when we are faced with doing the heavy lifting and we are faced with the battles that come with change and betterment, we say, oh, well, I'm being too idealistic. That's never going to happen. No, I completely reject that. We were not born, we don't come out of our mom's womb with, being 6 foot tall, right? It's not like we come out and then an hour later we grow to full length and full strength. Our lives are meant to be a journey. We are meant to go through processes. We are meant to go through pain. We are meant to experience pleasure. And there is nothing more gratifying than fighting for your ideals and seeing those ideals come to be the norm in society. And so if not me, I would have at least planted the seed for the next generation of leaders, or maybe the current generation of leaders that are just waiting for someone to set the example. And so maybe if I don't have the success at doing it, it doesn't mean that the ideal will not remain and someone else will not be inspired to say, you know what, we need to get this done, and we will continue to try. The first airplane did not come about until after many crashes and many launches. That's just the process of life. So we have to imagine the beliefs that we want, and it should not be beyond our reach. There's nothing beyond our reach. Does that mean it's going to be easy? Does that mean it's going to come without sacrifices? Absolutely not. Nothing in life comes without sacrifice. And there's nothing greater to sacrifice for than the betterment of your nation.
I remember
one quick follow-up, and then you, Bilal.
Go ahead, Lara.
So this phrase, so you that just come, how you walk here, because I've heard it, and it's not only from you, I've heard it from PUP saying it to their young people on a need for wait, but I think by the time you wait, they don't kind of mold you into what we're trying to change. But that has become the narrative. That like the people who are passionate about anti-Shyne are literally saying, we own this party, we there forever, there for Colonel Thompson days. You know, things like that. I feel like that's a classic anti-change narrative. But how do you fight it? Because believers feel like you really should wait. You should wait your turn. Because I've heard it from so many different... We don't believe in a competition, because competition is the best rise to the top. We kind of try...
That's just... Beliefs you have... when I was a youth growing up in the States, there were many people told me that I would never make it, I would never be anything. Many people projected their failures on me, in their life not working out on me. There were people who, even though their life worked out, are just haters and just don't want to see other people advance. So I think you can never live your life based on what other people are saying, no matter how many of them are saying it, because there are many other people that I meet all across this country that say, keep going, don't stop. You know, you are what we need. This is the revolution we need in Belize. You're the next prime minister that we need, and that's just life. You know, I looked at the World Series. You have two of the greatest players going up against each other, and it goes inning by inning. The Yankees were up 6-0 yesterday, and then they lost 7-6. That's life. You know, you cannot pay attention to the naysayers and the detractors. And in my particular case, those who say that I'm a just come, they had been the stalwarts are the ones that ruin the party. I'm not responsible for where the party is. No one told John Saldiva to engage in corruption, so he had to resign within 72 hours of his leadership. No one told Patrick Farber to stamp down a door, get a bribe, survive a recall, then 6 months later assault his fiancée with a hammer, and so then he had to resign. So what does that say about the stalwarts, the established people, the old guard, that they had the opportunity, they had the chance to lead the party, they had the chance, they had the full support to go forward with their vision after 20 years, 5 terms of being in office, and they were not prepared for the moment, and they let a just come, they let a novice have to be the one to come in. Well, that says more about them than it does about me. I am not the one that created the space for me to be duly elected as leader and then re-elected. So what you have is personalities, resentment, jealousy, envy, ego, entitlement on their part. Nothing to do with the Belizean people, nothing to do with the ideals of governance, nothing to do with getting us closer to forming government so that we can implement policies that will enhance the lives of Belizeans. Nothing to do with that. It's all about ego. I am supposed to be the leader because I have been there for 20 years. I have been there for 5 terms. Nothing to do with the practicality, nothing to do with the discipline that a political organization needs in order to blossom. I was duly elected twice. Everyone will have a chance to challenge me. in the next national convention after the next general elections. Why not wait a couple months? But again, the hatred, when you're fueled by hatred and you lack emotional intelligence because you're overwhelmed with your passion and fury, then you can't think straight. And these people have said it on record that they would prefer to buck up and destroy the UDP rather than Shyne Barrow become the next prime minister, which is absolutely outrageous.
Do you think that the last municipal elections that transpired a couple months ago last year,
It was this year.
this year, do you think that it sort of fueled a challenge against your leadership, being that United Democratic Party did not do good at all? I think in the whole history of the United Democratic Party as an opposition party may have been the worst.
That is completely incorrect.
But it did not, the showing on the political landscape was very, very small.
You cannot mistake the facts. The worst that the United Democratic Party did was under Patrick Farah in 2021, where we only won 2 seats in the entire 67 seats. We improved under my leadership. It was not dramatic improvement, but we gained an additional 4 seats, and we went from losing certain municipalities where we lost worse than the independent party in 2021 in Punta Gorda town, for example. The mayoral candidate, Hansel Warrior, got less votes. The UDP mayoral candidate got less votes than Will Mahia's independent party. Under my leadership, we actually won PG, and we took that to court because there was a dispute that we won by 10, and then they recounted, and we lost by 20. So that is a dramatic gain to go from 200 votes to 800 votes. So it is not fair, it is inaccurate, it is dishonest to say that it's the worst that we've ever done. Now, could we have done better? Of course, you hope to do better, but the pattern of political parties in opposition, the performance is on par with the history of political parties in opposition. The People's United Party did no better in their terms of opposition. They did not turn it around until the 3rd term of their opposition, and that was only with 3 municipalities. They went from 1 to 2 to 3 in the 3 terms. So when you expect that in the 1st term, the UDP should have half the municipalities after fighting for years, from 2019, the internal fighting started, John Saldiva, Patrick Farber, all the way into 2020, it wasn't until a couple months before the general elections that the fighting eased a bit. Then the fighting continued in 2021 with the attempted recall of Farber. Then the fighting continued in 2022 when I got elected, because those that are saying, oh, just have a convention, and if you win the convention, we will support you. Absolute absurdity, because after I won the convention in 2022, they declared war against me. They were running ads against me, they were doing everything to overtake me and destroy me. So let us not pretend that going into the 2024 municipal elections, that the party had gathered itself and had stability and had an opportunity to really position itself for victory. I was literally fighting the old guard, or the old guard was fighting me, I should say. I was fighting them off, literally up to like a couple months before the municipal elections, because remember, Father had been stopped from running because of his public campaign against me, and other members had been expelled, and we tried to bring them all back. I tried to work with people like Lodi Aragon and Omar Figueroa, who didn't vote for me, never supported me, but I still tried to work with everyone. But it's not fair, Bilal, to not put it in context. Political organizations do terribly in opposition. It is a fact of life, and as I said, John Briceño in opposition at his height had 3 municipalities, and that was in the 3rd term of the People's United Party. So we are just in our 1st term, and to expect that the performance is going to be so glorious is just not a truthful reflection of the pattern of political parties' performances in opposition.
But one of the things I actually like is that you actually come with facts, right? So nobody can come with inaccurate information. Seeing the history that has been happening with the United Democratic Party, because I always raise the infighting has been going on for a long time before you were even there, before the party actually lost election. There has been serious infighting that has now spilled out in a very toxic public forum type stuff. Going into 2025, right? It's interesting that the Prime Minister has not called an election during this process. But my thinking is, and I'm just doing it for my political training a little bit, but my thinking is that PUP wants to admonish the UDP. And so what's happening?
You mean admonish? Because admonish means warning.
Not abolish, because abolish means forbid, but destroy.
Abolish means destroying in some ways.
I know I get into the what the word faction discussion.
Admonish mean actually giving support and sort of
When you abolish.
admonish. You said admonish
I didn't hear admonish. I heard
admonish. Anyway, destroy. Is a word.
Yes.
So they want to destroy the UDP, and why I'm saying that is, while infighting is taking place, because somebody raised the issue, Honorable Tracy only won by 50 votes last time, and there's been a lot of distraction that's been going on. There's been no information coming from at least the Alliance for Democracy. There's been no attack, and I'm not talking vicious, but no opposition stance against the government. In fact, it looks like a love affair in the House of Representatives, which I think is problematic. Because if you're going to be playing these games, at the end of the day, you're really there to do a job. You're there to be the opposition, and the opposition job is to raise issues and highlight issues of public interest, and fight for Belizeans, make sure, keep the government accountable, right? That's the job of the opposition.
Yes.
It's problematic when everybody, they hug up, because what happens is...
I don't hug up with them.
We know that you are fired.
I don't go in there to fight. I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but I don't go in there to be personal. I don't go in there to be viciously attacking anyone. I go there with facts. The issues that I raise are based on constituency concerns and things for the entire nation to see what is wrong, and I deal with that. But when you see the people that claim they want to lead the country as far as the alliance, having a de facto coalition with the government. So basically, you do whatever you want to do. Let us just gang up on Shyne, so that you'll get another term, but then we'll get rid of Shyne.
But I think that it's such poor strategy, because everybody's going to get rid of themselves in the process.
Well, that's what the PUP wants. So they think that they're using the PUP, but the PUP is using them. As you said, Albert did not have a significant margin of victory. It was, I think, 50 is too much. I believe it was 39.
It was like 42. I think somebody
exactly. So that was 42. And in fact, now with a candidate, 2 candidates will be running against Albert, Alliance candidate. You'll have a UDP candidate and you'll have a PUP candidate. So the PUP is not really helping Tracy by setting her against me and setting this civil war in place. They're actually out to destroy her. But I guess,
But it's my thing is though, I want everybody to see it from this perspective because it doesn't matter once two candidates enter, there'll be no more UDP. End of story. Because some will vote for Alliance, some will vote for UDP, and then that vote is going to be split up, and then the PUP candidate is going to come out on top. It's, to me, it's literally, I call it the snake eating its tail. It is not an agenda that will work. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Did it occur to you that that is the strategy for it not to work?
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that how can the strategy, how can...
Let me tell you why the strategy is for it not to work. The strategy is we prefer to lose and broke the party up than for Shyne Barrow to have any success. Not just to become Prime Minister, but if Shyne Barrow leads the party to double its seats, then it will be difficult for these people with their ambition to ever become leader or to become leader anytime soon. So the strategy is, let's create this civil war, let's create this chaos, so that, and one person out of the alliance has a good chance of winning despite the civil war, which is Patrick Farber. And even he needs to be careful, right? But certainly Tracy cannot consider that she has any chance of winning with a civil war. So the people that are setting her up, because this is not necessarily her strategy. Her strategy, she just wants power. And so she'll take an interim leader title, an interim leader of the alliance title. But the masterminds, John Saldiva and Patrick Farber, they would prefer that everybody lose. And Farber wants John to lose because he still wants to get rid of him, wants Tracy to lose because he wants to get rid of her. And out of the alliance, it will be Farber and the other UDPs that do win, because there are seats that we will be able to win. But Farber is going to get rid of John and Tracy in one swoop. So this makes all the sense if you look at the long-term strategy, because he doesn't want to have the party win. He's always been selfish. He is going to win in his mind, and this works perfect because Tracy will lose, John will lose, and he'll be the last man standing.
When you talk about alliance, Shyne, I remember you bring me back to the National Alliance for Belizean Rights, led by Philip Golson and Derek Aikman, who broke away from the main cadre of the United Democratic Party in dispute, disagreement. The question I want to ask is a fair one, in that we have, like, I'm dealing with patterns here in the history of the United Democratic Party as a government and as an opposition. But I remember that where Minister Golson and Derek Aikman broke away, formed the National Alliance for Belizean Rights in disagreement with the cadre of the party on the Anglo-Guatemalan claim on the Maritime Areas Act. Do you think that, but there was a regrouping when it came to the general election where the National Alliance for Belizean Rights came back in with the main cadre?
There was a coalition. There was a coalition.
A coalition to win the national general election. Do you think this will happen in this case with this crisis that is unfolding in presently?
No. The leader of the Alliance for the Democracy Party has said she's not interested in that. So we move forward.
So if the general elections is called tomorrow, how would the United Democratic Party fare as an opposition in going into that general election?
We run our candidates, and I've always provided the resources for the party, and we are ready with our resources. I continue to implore my candidates to work hard and not to be distracted by this. It's no different than any competition. If you're on the away court, they will boo you when you go to the free throw. They will boo you when you're up to bat. It's just a part of the game of life, and you have to stay focused. Focus is key with all that is happening, because if you continue to engage your constituents, if you continue to build relationships with them, have their trust and their confidence when the election is called, then they will elect the people that they feel comfortable to represent them. And despite the chaos, while it doesn't help, it is not the end of your pursuit, because remember, it is not the prime minister, it's not the leader of the party that gets elected and then selects his cabinet. You have to have a majority of seats. So each of my candidates are leaders. They are leaders in their constituency, and they have to be loved. They have to be admired. They have to have the confidence of the people, not necessarily me. And I have done everything to complement my colleagues, to support my colleagues, to strengthen them. And the people that are fighting against us, to me, day by day, they make themselves more loathed and more hated because what they're doing is not helping anyone. And as we've outlined, it doesn't even help them, because some of them are at a real risk of losing their seats. But again, you have these masterminds for 20 and 30 years of experience, knowing how to cause division, knowing how to cause coup d'etats. But it's a part of life. I have been through hell. I've been through much worse. And, you know, tragedy comes before triumph, and you just have to stay the course.
And I'm glad we can pivot a little bit, because thank you for talking about Belize politics. A lot of us in the diaspora are interested because ultimately we want to see Belize succeed, and we can only succeed with a healthy democracy where people can dispute in a very healthy fashion. I found
through the judiciary, through rule of law, not by
and healthy discussion.
Healthy debates, but not by taking up arms, not by taking the law into your own hands. That is a threat to democracy.
You know what I found surprising, before I pivot a little bit, I found surprising that the media allowed all the cussing that was taking place to be aired live, rather than pull back from it a little bit, interview people away from it, because I just thought, imagine the world is looking on. It's not only us in Belize. You have all these different organizations, NGOs, you have the diaspora, you have all these governments in Belize being showcased on every media source, and because it was, to me, embarrassing. There's no other way to describe it. It was extremely embarrassing. It seemed like, you know, like what Jerry Springer showed, like when Jerry Springer, the level, it was, I don't know how else to describe it, but just to pivot a little bit, you mentioned triumph and pain and different things that you've been through. Tell us a little bit about the documentary that's coming out on Hulu. It's November 18th, I believe.
Yes.
November 18th. Could you just tell us a little bit about it and the different like areas that they're going to cover? You're already getting a lot of attention on this documentary. So just tell us a little bit about it, Honorable Shyne.
Well, it's a bio documentary that will follow my life from Belize, Carousel Street, you know, not having a toilet system, having to take the bucket of waste to the canal side, to, you know, a single parent home in Brooklyn, to making it in the recording industry and selling millions of records and facing incarceration and being deported to Belize and transitioning, pivoting into a life of public service as initially the standard bearer, getting elected to the House of Representatives, getting elected to be UDP leader and to the office of the opposition leader, and a step away from being the next prime minister.
How do you deal with, because I find you've been in a lot of different spaces. You've been in the highest, lowest, interesting spaces. You've been around the world. You've met a lot of leaders and stuff like that. So you really have been exposed to a lot of different environments, right? How do you deal with the like, for example, someone said there's a lot of African Americans that are elated about this story. The idea that because in America, the United States have the highest incarceration rate of any first world country, and disproportionately it's minorities. And the sentencing is stiffer when it comes to minorities. And I did a whole paper on that one time, so I know that as a part of the study that I did. A lot of African Americans saw a lot of things that happened as being unfair. And the incarceration for 10 years is something that we see happen in Belize all the time. People are threatened all the time with weapons and stuff like that, and they don't even face any serious repercussions. How do you measure the two different societies? One where people can understand it, and even in Belize where we see a lot of young, I saw a picture with the prison, and we saw predominantly young black men in the prison system. But for some reason in Belize, we don't seem to align it to the disproportionate incarceration aspect of it. So how do you think you can influence a society like Belize that I find sometimes can be a little bit punitive when it comes to judgment versus an African American society that reveres something to see somebody transition? How do you see the two different societies?
Well, my story is a unique story, but I believe that reformation and rehabilitation are things that we should embrace. I know the Chief Justice of Belize has a criminal justice reform agenda. I know the Attorney General, Anthony Sylvester, has a criminal justice reform agenda as well. I would like to see them go further, but they have been taking steps. So I believe we're a developing nation, and it just takes constant sensitization, education, and examples, and people in high office, people in private sector, public sector. I think it has to be a collective mindset of Belize that the better all of us do, the better the lowest of us do, the better all of us do. So failure is not something that we should enjoy or dismiss. So if people are involved with the criminal justice system, we should want to rehabilitate them. We should want to reform them because we don't want them to keep committing crimes. We would like them to be constructive members of society that will not pose a threat to us, but in fact complement the larger collective so that we can have peace and security and economic prosperity. So I believe that there are many Belizeans that are open-minded, many Belizeans that embrace people that have made mistakes. I just think, I'm not sure if I'm a fair example because I'm a polarizing figure because of politics. So in America, I'm not a politician, but maybe if I was a Democrat, Republicans would be attacking me, and if I was a Republican, Democrats would be attacking me. So America's a bit different. In America, I'm a legend, sold millions of records, and I'm someone that people know from music. But here in Belize, while people may remember the music, they don't appreciate the gravity of the accomplishments there, which is fine for me because I'm not living as Shyne. I'm living as someone who wants to lead the country. And so for me, it's based on substance and policy. And I find that it's about timing. People, I spoke to an activist earlier this morning, and he said, you should embrace what is happening to you because you have an opportunity to get rid of all of the devils at once. It doesn't usually happen like that. These people are offering themselves up to you for the slaughter because what you're doing is exactly what needs to be done. Get rid of all of them because we don't want any of them. And I don't know UDP or PUP, but we voted against all of them. So, you have to embrace these opportunities. And there are people that see the substance and the content of the man rather than the propaganda, rather than the hype, rather than the PR. And so it just takes time. There are people out there listening. There are people out there observing and seeing things for what they are. And so I'm not interested in sympathy necessarily. I'm just interested in living by my ideals and trying to do my best to build confidence through actions rather than words. And we will continue on that. But Belize is 43 years old as an independent nation, so it's not necessarily fair to compare with the United States. But as I said, I'm a different figure in the two different worlds. And as a political figure, you know, especially when you are trying to reform, you will have everyone against you. So I have the old guard of the UDP against me, and I have the PUP doing what they're supposed to do, which is attacking me, and then they have their followers. So it may seem in the society that there's a lack of appreciation, but that is politics. There are very many people that I interact with every day across this country that appreciate what I'm doing, young and old.
Now talk about the documentary, Shyne, and I was just wanted the question about external forces that are working in terms that you're also a Belizean politician that has a domestic support and popularity, as well as you are a Belizean politician that has a external support out of the United States with your fans and your fan base coming out of the hip hop industry. As you talk about this documentary that is to be done by Hulu, how do you see the forces, the United States government, you're being offered visa to get into the United States, and these forces working on the external aspect, American foreign policy, you have to look at that. How do you think that all these things, the external most of all, has impacted your life as a political candidate and as a political leader in Belize now?
I'm not sure what you mean about the visa. I don't know what that has to do.
I mean, talk about the external forces, subtract that. How low your popularity that you have garnered abroad?
Yeah, because Buju Banton is not a politician, and he served 10 years and he got a visa to go to the States. So getting a visa after a certain amount of time.
Now, they talk about how does the American State Department play into your political career?
This is what I'm saying. To me, I'm not sure where you're going with that question or how to receive that, but I just want to clarify that as a musician that sold millions of records, I could get an exemption to travel to the States. So me traveling to the States has nothing to do necessarily with politics, and I am a duly elected representative. No external force had anything to do with me getting elected. So I'm not sure what you mean by an external force, my fan base. Now you're bringing up the State Department. I find that a bit incendiary, to be quite honest. America is our #1 bilateral partner, embraced by the PUP and UDP governments since 1981. So I don't know why I would be any different and why I would not be a supporter of the United States as far as our biggest bilateral partner, as far as my second home. How can I be pro-diaspora, but then you want to... I'm not sure what you're saying, right? It just sounds a bit insidious as to if the State Department has any role in my political life when I was duly elected to the House of Representatives. And so you're saying any politician that supports the diaspora and is a son of the diaspora is involved with the State Department in what way? I'm not involved with my bilateral partners in any other way than friendship. We put out a motion in the NPC celebrating our friendship with Cuba, who the Americans have their own problems with, celebrating Taiwan, celebrating CARICOM. So I'm not sure what you're saying, but I'd like some clarity.
Yeah, I just was trying to figure out how external forces, U.S. foreign policy, you're being involved with, coming into the United States, your acceptance and your you were embraced very heavily in the Black
But what
Caucus.
does that have to
And
do?
how does that play into your politics at home, your domestic politics? That's all I was trying to figure out.
Still sounds a bit fuzzy, but I grew up in the United States. I sold over 40 million records. People know me in America for being Shyne. Obviously, as someone who has been successful in a short period of time in the political arena, I go all around the world, not just the United States. I go to Jamaica. I just met with the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the leader of the opposition of Jamaica, Prime Minister of Grenada, leader of the opposition of Grenada. That is my foreign policy. My foreign policy is embrace all, similar to George Price, enemy to none. Mine, Belize's domestic policy. So Jamaica, America, Cuba does not impact the way that I think about Belize. And we have to worry about inflation. We have to worry about stagflation. We have to worry about citizen security. We have to worry about food security. So that is how our policy in Belize is shaped. And foreign policy is to build stronger relationships, even with the people that we disagree with. And there are many nations that I believe could do better. Venezuela has been very good to Belize under both governments, and there were significant benefits under the Barrow administration, but I don't agree, or we don't agree, many of us in the opposition, with the way the elections were conducted recently, where there was no transparency, there was no release of the data according to the Venezuelan constitution, the way it should happen. And so we've expressed that, but it doesn't mean that we would suspend diplomatic ties with Venezuela, because that is the part of diplomacy that matters, engagement, dialogue. So even where there are disagreements, that is what diplomacy is all about. But certainly, you would expect that as a son of the diaspora, as someone that was extremely successful in the United States, it's not as if I had become a politician and now people know me in the States. It's the reverse. I've had a significant impact in American culture, and so it is to be expected that doors would open for me unlike they would other politicians, and I've taken full advantage of that. I've taken full advantage in my capacity as leader of the opposition, reaching out to people, whether it be in the Black Caucus, but then I also was in South Carolina, where a Republican House recognized me and gave me, a plaque and whatever certificates they bestow upon members that visit their house. And treated me with the utmost reverence and regard. And so I've met with many Republican politicians, Democratic politicians, all for the benefit of Belize, regionally, in the United States, in the UK, in Africa, in Europe. So that is the foreign policy.
I just like to, because I found it it's an interesting question, because I feel like to a lot of people you are almost like a unicorn, in the sense that whenever people think the United States, there's always conspiracy theorists, right? And then you come from like hip hop, you are something Belizeans have never experienced. And the world maybe have never experienced. You're larger than life. You're very smart, you are very articulate, and so that in some places that could be something fearful, because you're not coming from the status quo. And one of the things I will say many times in Belize, and I think that's why a lot of members at the diaspora left, is because success in Belize has to be crowned by the status quo. In other words, the government has the power to make or break you, especially in the business world and even in the professional world. And so a lot of people become cheerleaders of corruption, or they stay very far from it, and then they become silent to corruption because they understand that But here comes a young man, right? And this is how I see you. I see you as a young man that shouldn't have been successful. For many reasons, and I hope the documentary covers this, because you weren't supposed to be successful. You mentioned your mom was a single mom, you're in New York, right? And then you get into a high-level hip-hop industry, and then you went to prison, and for most people, that's where their story ends, right? That's where people's story ends. So here you come now like a phoenix. You know, when you come to Belize, nobody expected anything more than, Shyne just want to try to go back to the United States. The minute they get a visa, you go into the States, I know they come back. That used to be the narrative. And now that narrative keeps changing, because what it is that people are trying to predict your future for you. They're trying to, and that can only be predicted based on what they've experienced before. But here you are now meeting with leaders. You're not a prime minister. You understand? You just the top, but you didn't meet all these top leaders around the world. Are you not a prime minister? That's something that can be very scary in an environment that crowns people. And I would just like to ask you, how do you feel about that? Because that's how it's easy to create propaganda around you. How do you feel about that? And do you have a vision for, like young people in Belize, if you're elected one day, do you have a vision for redemption so that people are not, their past doesn't follow them for the rest of their life, and they can, escape out that narrative or that stereotype or that whole cloud that follows? How I would like to get your thought on how you think you're perceived in Belize, because Belize is small, and because we're small, we're not used to meeting. We're not used to people like you in this environment.
I don't think in terms of how I am perceived, rather than the life that I want to create for Belizeans. You have to focus on substance. You have to focus on policy. And so this is not a selfish endeavor. This is all about how you can create opportunities for all Belizeans, whether people that have been reformed, whether people that are privileged, because the privileged have a responsibility and a contribution to make as well. They complement each other. I would never want to be a leader that only focuses on one segment of the population. I want to be a leader that gets everyone to be a part of the project, of the vision Belize. And so it's all about equal opportunity, creating space for people to thrive, no matter what rung of the ladder they may start. And I believe that is what we lack in Belize. It's usually just the political cronies and the political officials and their affiliates that have opportunity in Belize. And I'd like to see that change very much, where you will go as far as your talent takes you. You will go as far as your discipline, sacrifice, and diligence takes you. And so that is what I focus on. And I continue to travel around the country, meeting with people, understanding their unique perspectives, their desires, their ambitions, what it is that they want, what their challenges are. And I have a good sense of that. And on the first 100 days, we will execute the policy implementations that will bring about the equity of opportunity, that will bring about the overhaul of the system that has stagnated Belizeans, that have suppressed Belizeans, that have discriminated against Belizeans. So that is my take on where I'm at in Belize. I don't get caught up into being a unicorn or being whatever. I get caught up in what it is I'm trying to accomplish. And when you're trying to accomplish something that is beyond you, then it's so consuming, it's exhilarating, and there's no time to stop and look in the mirror, because that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking at the people and I'm trying to understand the people, and I'm trying to, as I understand them, communicate the policies that speak to them so that they can give my team and I the opportunity to revolutionize beliefs.
As you,
One of the
as
things,
you go to...
I just want to ask one follow-up on that, and then I'll let you go. Based on that you're saying, one of the things I notice about Belize, there's no national development plan. There might be one, but I'm talking about a shared national development plan with all political leaders, and Belize has a lot of dynamic young people. There's you. I won't call any other politician's name, but there's a lot of young, dynamic politicians on both sides that, to me, have the potential to really take Belize to the next level, but we stay in competition mode. We stay in competition and destroy. And what I'm saying that is that I don't want you to be involved because I'm competing against you. And I'm trying to say, what will it take for Belizeans, young politicians like yourself, and you have Kareem, and you have Marla on the other side, you have you, Darrell, and to me, some potentially, I don't say necessarily they're in politics, but there's these potential young people. Remember we did that fireside chat. You guys sat down, you had a good talk, I thought. But I feel like we need to do more of that because Belize needs a national development plan. And the plan can't be that you have an asset like Shyne, because I think you're an asset to the country, and the asset in the sense that you are in spaces that a lot of us can't get into. But you're in the space. Why are we not collaborating and making sure that we can all build? Belize only 400,000 people. I just don't understand our level of toxicity and the constant war and fighting for a little bit of people. We're all related by blood or marriage or friendship. So my ask is, as a young politician, and if you one day are Prime Minister of Belize, or when you become Prime Minister of Belize, I want us to move away from the toxic politics. Because most of us, I am not going to hate nobody for politics. I will respect people based on the respect that they give and the respect that they show. That's how I am. But I think we all love Belize. We all love Belize in our own way. Some of us are narcissists. I mean, in the sense of, I just want to become leader, blah, 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 and I really care about the parties. But I still think ultimately there's something in everybody that loves Belize. The diaspora, we love Belize, you know. How would you, in your vision and your experiences, and the fact that you can enter these spaces, how would you create this national development plan? Because we urgently need one. And I would hope that any leader listening see the value of creating a national bipartisan or multi-partisan development plan.
Well, I think that I've been doing that. When you look at the sister city relations that I have gotten done with PUP mayors, that is a part of a mature and sophisticated leadership style that I have implemented, whereas the old guard would repudiate me for doing these things because of the old school mentality of can't do anything to make the people United Party look good. But my position has been, it's about Belize. So I don't care if Bernard Wagner is a PUP. Getting the mayor of New York City to have sister relations with Belize City is for the residents of Belize. When I am in the spaces that I am in, it's about Belize. It's not about the UDP or the PUP. It's about Belize and the Belizean people. So I think I've done that. I did it. The first one I did was with Mayor of Newark, again with Bernard Wagner. I did one with Inglewood and the Mayor of San Ignacio, Santa Elena. But I have repeatedly shown my ability to work in a bipartisan fashion and not play old school politics at the Diaspora Summit. That was a summit that involved many factions of the government, and I felt that it was important for the opposition to be there. So I believe that I've demonstrated that, in my capacity as opposition leader, I work for Belize. Whenever you see me anywhere, again, you're talking about a Disney production, multi-million-dollar production, going to be everywhere in the world, on Disney Plus, on Hulu, going to be massive media coverage, and it's all about Belize. It's filmed in Belize. We shot in front of Alton Ha. I took them to San Pedro. I took them all around Belize in Mesopotamia, etc. That's going to be an extraordinary marketing tool for Belize. Every media host that I speak to internationally, Belize.
Yeah, it absolutely will be.
When I'm in the spaces, when I'm talking, whether it's the Prime Minister of Jamaica or I'm talking to a congressman or a governor, it's about Belize. And networking is the key to getting things done. And so I have networked on behalf of Belize, and I have not allowed politics to prevent progress. Because I did not say to the mayor of New York City, oh, well, let's wait until I have a UDP mayor. So I've done what you're saying we should be doing, and I continue. When there's George Price Day or an event for George Price, I go. There was an unveiling. The Minister of Tourism had an unveiling of his statue on the day of his passing at Battlefield Park. I attend. So I am not one of those politicians that believes in the old school mentality of party first and our country after. I believe that we have to put our country first, and where the two political organizations can find middle ground for the benefit of Belize, I have demonstrated that I am prepared to do that. It is on record, undeniable, that I have worked with PUP mayors, with the mayors of the biggest or the most powerful cities in the world. New York City is one of the most powerful. They call it the capital of the world. And I gave that to Bernard Wagner. It didn't matter what his political affiliation was. All that mattered is that the residents of Belize could have some potential gain.
If you look at your history, the Honorable Shyne Barrow, I have to ask the question that, as was asked to you at the Diaspora Summit in your forum, about the political oligarchy that has ruled Belize for decades. And that question that was asked to you, do you think that you can unseat that morass, that political power that oligarchy has on political power in that country? The people in your very party, the Belizean people call it the PUDP, right? Do you think that you have impacted, or do you think that you can change that political oligarchy and sort of put Belize into the development that you so beautifully spoke about just though? The work, look at the work that you have already done in terms of crossing the floor, showing example of unity in the development of a country. But you have this challenge, this corrupted political oligarchy and its vices that just stares you in the face and says that power will not concede willingly.
Well, that is to be expected, Bilal. And any world champion, you may see them on the athletic stage when the lights and the cameras are there, but they go through grueling preparation, grueling exercises to be able to get to that ultimate stage and be a world champion. So nothing is without resistance. And so what it is that I want to accomplish on behalf of the Belizean people in the context of the oligarchs, they have to be removed from the pathway of our national development. and I have a task, I have a purpose, and my purpose is to help Belizeans, and whatever obstacles are there, I, along with my colleagues of like mind, will continue to fight to do what is right, and I'm demonstrating that right now. You talk about the morass, you talk about the corrupt cabal. They are the ones that are fighting against me right now, but I refuse to retreat, I refuse to surrender, and I'm showing you, because if I were like the rest of them, I'm sure we could all get along and we could find common ground and there would be no resistance. But I'm not, and I will stand fast by my principles and ideals, and I will continue to forge forward, and success is by the might of truth, grace of God, and the will of the Belizean people. And I do feel very strongly that the Belizean people are watching, they're observing, they are looking, and they're seeing what they want. And I believe they voted against those corrupt people, that morass that you spoke of. And I believe they are seeing that I treat with them in similar fashion, that I'm trying to rid and purge the party of those people that want to continue this stranglehold on our democracy, on our development. So for me, I think with optimism, and I'm guided by a genuine intent for betterment. So you can't be defeated when you have that intention. I don't believe it's idealistic. I don't believe it is fanciful. I believe that you have to be strategic, you have to be disciplined, you have to be focused, you have to be relentless, resolute, and keep going. And if not me, I will certainly inspire the leaders that will do it. We will change the mindsets, we will change the thinking of the leaders, we will change the thinking of the people, where the people will start demanding better leaders, different leaders. It will stop being transactional. I don't want $50. I want a policy that is going to put me in a position where I don't need to ask any politician for $50. And I just have to continue along with my colleagues to get that message out there, get that communication out there. But I'm not sure if you or ARIA said it. You're right. When people see all that I've been able to accomplish in a short time as opposition leader and short time as a first-term parliamentarian, it is frightening, and it may be very well frightening to this oligarch that had ministers that were helping them to land drug planes and do all types of corrupt acts so that they can extract all the wealth from Belize. So they're like, who's this guy? And remember, I was not a part of the cabinet. I was not a part of that Barrow. So they're like, I don't know him, but I know this corrupt guy. I know the other corrupt guy, the other corrupt woman. So it's better to keep them in power, because at least we know with them we'll be able to do what we want to do. And so I am happy that I don't have to answer to the oligarch, and that I will only answer to the Belizean people. And I will do my best, as I said, to get into a position where we can truly break that 43-year cycle of corruption that has been devastating to the Belizean people.
And thank you so much, because we are now at the time. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Appreciate you coming, my brother. Appreciate you.
All the best. I hope they don't accuse you guys of being an external force.
Actually.
Academy, Shyne.
Oh, well, thank you guys for tuning in. And with that being said, we had the Honorable Shyne Barrow. Thank you, XTV, for providing this platform so that the diaspora could have these discussions and examine leadership in Belize and different people within the diaspora. I think it's important to have conversations. I think it's extremely important that we talk to our leaders and that our leaders speak to each other and in a respectful manner. I don't think that a country so small can afford to try to get people caught up in different petty, small that can be resolved. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in, and we shall see you next week.
Thank you for watching.
am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born there.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them